The keys to the National Republican Party headquarters were dangling in the doorway to the exclusive Capitol Club. I instinctively grabbed them out of the lock and tossed them to Mike Allberger. Suddenly, at least the security personnel were happy to come out and talk to ADAPT. At the heart of direct action is taking action. At the end of October 1998, in Washington, D.C., ADAPT was striking back to help preserve the American with Disabilities Act and the gains that we had made in transportation. Just 8 years after the historic civil rights legislation became law, Georgia was attempting to erase the integration mandate from the ADA. The state argued in federal court that institutions were appropriate places for people with disabilities. And they had won. The Olmstead case would go to the U.S. Supreme Court in early 1999. Many people spoke how the ADA had attempted too much. They used language similar to those that oppose lift on buses. Rather than local option, adversaries lectured about unfunded mandates and states' rights. They said the momentum was gone from the ADA, and frustrating especially to ADAPT's history, the American Bus Association was suing to stop the mandate for lifts on all new buses. People with disabilities had made significant gains over the past few years. Maybe progress should slow down. Action, however, is what ADAPT is about. Not at all considering waiting to see what happens, hundreds of ADAPT activists flooded into Washington, D.C. to regain the initiative with the message that we will be the ones to define our rights. Direct action had proven very successful in establishing equality in transportation. Wade Blank explained that in cities like Denver that use direct action, the transportation systems had made commitments to accessibility. Cities without direct action of people with disabilities demanding equal access were lagging noticeably behind. Cross-country buses, mostly Greyhound, were using their lawyers in a tactic of delay to avoid regulations to make over-the-road buses accessible. On the final day of the fall action, a team of about 30 ADAPT activists negotiated all day with the American Bus Association. The ABA's office is in the old Greyhound terminal in Washington, D.C., where most of us chanted for hours in the acoustically amplifying giant marble foyer. The ABA gave up, and ADAPT had secured a meeting with the ABA president after the police came and prepared to make hundreds of arrests. The day before, ADAPT had demanded the Department of Health and Human Services, specifically the Healthcare Finance Administration, HCFA, that runs Medicaid, to stop backpedaling and enforce the ADA's integration mandate. Activists had spent the day in a tussle as general service police officers pulled people from doors and out of wheelchairs. One entrance at a time, the officers and activists pushed and filled empty space. It was a non-violent dance of authority and passion. Of course, about 40 activists had the parking garage blocked, and as the end of the business day came near, HHS administration and officers realized they couldn't play the same game with the parking lot. As soon as they pulled someone out of the drive, another ADAPT activist would take their place, and kept all the cars bottled up. When HCFA realized that they had to negotiate to get home, John Callahan, the Assistant Secretary of Management and Budget, invited an ADAPT team in to work out the details. When the team refused to accept the first draft of an agreement, the activists inside only had to point Mr. Callahan to the window, where he could see and hear ADAPT's passion and commitment. He realized that ADAPT meant what they said, and agreed in writing that ADAPT would meet with the Secretary herself. Every one of us played a role that day. The part of this action that I remember best was a small role I played at the National Republican Party headquarters. On the first day of the action, ADAPT split into a bipartisan force and hit the Republican and Democrat national headquarters. The direct goal was the support of McCasa, but everyone wanted to make a clear statement that institutionalization is discrimination, like the ADA says. I remember this well because before we actually blocked the doors to the National Republican headquarters, we were attempting to crowd into the building. In the struggle at the front door, a security guard had left the keys hanging in the door, and I grabbed them and tossed those keys to Mike. The security personnel threatened to have me arrested on all kinds of felonies, but I had no idea where the keys were. They could identify me as the person who grabbed the keys, but they didn't know what I did with them. Mike Allberger did all the talking, and they grilled him about the keys. Mike never lost the focus on why ADAPT was there and turned all the Republican Party folks' questions back to support for our legislation. For all I knew, Mike had the keys right there with him. ADAPT got letters of support from both Republicans and Democrats that day, but the unquantified success of the October 1998 action was that ADAPT had sent a message to the disability rights community and to the nation that we would not accept a slow unraveling of our civil rights. We demanded equality. We were going to fight Olmstead, and we were going to win.